In today's video, I wanted to go back and check Fort Solis FSR3 update because it added frame generation, which is really nice for one of the first Unreal Engine 5 games that launched with all the features. The game looks absolutely beautiful. We're going to take a look at the performance increases. I'll also be throwing in my RTX 4090 so we can also take a look at the DLSS3 frame generation. I'll even do a kind of a deep dive and examine each generated frame for quality and comparison purposes. Now, it's not all perfect, although it is a very good implementation of FSR3. Issue is that you must have an AMD card to be able to toggle FSR3 on or off. For example, this is the menu on my RTX 4090 PC, and as you can see, I have the option to choose DLSS, quality, whatever, and I also have the option to do DLSS frame generation. However, I can't choose FSR3, which for an RTX 4000 that's fine, but you know, you can use FSR3 frame generation on other GPUs like RTX 2000, 3000, or Intel. Actually, I'm not sure about Intel, how that works, because I don't have an Intel card. But if we hop over to the 7900 XTX here, as you can see, we have access to FSR3. Now, another thing that you can't do here, you can't turn frame generation on without turning FSR3 Super Resolution on. On NVIDIA, you can actually do that. You could turn DLSS3 frame generation without turning on DLSS. Now that's something I think AMD is going to change, but that's how the game is as of now. Now let's jump into the game, and we've turned film grain, motion blur, and chromatic abomination off, and we're going to turn on FSR quality at 4K with all the settings on high. As you can see here, FSR3 Super Resolution, which should still be FSR2, right, until AMD updated, actually looks pretty good. I don't really have many complaints. Biggest complaint with this game in particular, as a matter of fact, is the denoising for the lumen. It's not good at all. It's actually quite noisy, and sometimes it stands out and can be a bit distracting. So I'm hoping the devs can at least give us the option to use hardware ray tracing and maybe improve the denoiser. That would be nice. But yeah, I mean, the game looks pretty good. The performance can vary in some areas. It can dip below 60, but for the most part, it is 60 or above, usually. We're now going to go ahead and throw frame generation on the right. So we have FSR quality on the left, FSR quality with frame generation on the right. And as you can see, the footage is definitely smoother with FSR3 almost doubling our frame rate, and we are going to actually examine it more closely. I've prepared some footage that I captured at 120 FPS that I will slow down to 50%, so you guys should be able to see the difference in smoothness through YouTube, at least I hope. But as far as me testing this game, both DLSS3 and FSR3 actually work really good in this game. This type of game is perfect for that. We basically have an 82% increase in FPS as far as motion fluidity goes. The responsiveness, on the other hand, it feels like 60. It feels fine. I hope this here can put things into perspective just how demanding 4K native maxed out is all the way on the left, with FSR quality in the middle and FSR quality frame generation on the right. And the game looks pretty much the same. I don't see any degradation of quality, and using the super resolution technology like FSR DLSS is a very good method of gaining a lot more performance back with Unreal Engine 5 games. That has been the case. So yeah, I just wanted to put into perspective just how demanding this game is at 4K native with all the Unreal Engine 5 features. And it does look beautiful, other than that denoising part of it that I'm not a big fan of. Now, as far as me playing this game, the way I would play it personally, I am using a 4K LG C1 OLED TV, which goes up to 120. And unfortunately, if you go above 120 in this game, you will actually get some screen tearing, unless you have a high refresh rate display, obviously. So what I've done here is I have capped the FPS using the RivaTuner statistics server, and it's really smooth. It looks really nice. I am very impressed with the implementation of FSR3 here, and as you guys can see, we have pretty nice and steady 1% lows with 120 FPS cap as well, because it does go above that sometimes, although it seems to be around 100 to 130 depending on the area. But there's not really all that much more to see here. What I'd like to show you now is some 120 FPS footage I've captured that we're going to slow down to 50% so that you can see for yourself the improvement in fluidity, and then we'll also compare a little bit of DLSS3 frame generation as well. So let's take a look. Like I said, here we have 120 FPS recorded footage that I've slowed down to 50%, so you guys should be able to see this now on YouTube at 60 FPS. You can clearly see where we're getting 60 to 70 FPS on the left with FSR set to quality, and on the right we have FSR set to quality and frame generation enabled, and it's evident how much more fluid frame generation footage is, right? It's definitely very noticeable. Although, I mean, 60 to 70 FPS is very good FPS for this type of game, or most games really, but obviously getting up to 130 is even better because it definitely looks more fluid, better to the eye, for sure. With DLSS 3 frame generation, and this too, you can see how more fluid it looks with frame generation enabled. Again, doesn't look bad with DLSS, and we seem to be getting a bit higher FPS with DLSS set to quality just because we're using a slightly more powerful GPU, obviously. However, the frame generation side of it, it looks like we were getting a bit more with FSR3. So what I'm going to do next, on the next scene, we're going to take a look at FSR3 frame generation on the 7900 XTX with DLSS3 frame generation on the RTX 4090. And here they are, FSR3 versus DLSS3. And as you can see, even though we were getting less FPS with FSR quality on the 7900 XTX, we are getting more total with frame generation enabled on FSR3 side, because it seems that FSR3 frame generation generates a bit more frames than DLSS3 does. But they both look very fluid, very nice. I say we go in a little deeper though, just for curiosity's sake. For this part of the video, what I wanted to do is do a bit of a deeper dive so that we can take a look at the quality of the generated frames for both FSR3 and DLSS3. So I've captured this footage at 120 frames per second because we are getting around 120, and then we're going to skip frame by frame and take a look at the generated frames and the real frames and how they overlap one another. It's actually quite interesting. Now what we're going to do is we're going to keep a close eye on this fallen flower petal, because that's where you'll be able to notice the biggest difference, basically, because it's a fast moving object. And we're also going to keep a close eye on our character, especially the moving hands. Now let's skip ahead one frame, and as you can see, that petal got a little bit blurry. Let's skip ahead one more. And there you go. Now it's nice and clear again. This is a real frame. And you can see as we skip frame by frame, real frame, fake frame, real frame, fake frame, real frame, and fake frame. Let's now move over to our character, and we're going to take a look at the right hand. It's basically fast moving objects where frame generation will essentially begin to break apart as it tries to generate a frame in motion. There you go, that's a fake frame. You can see a bit of artifacting, almost like it's extensive blur. You can see it on the other hand as well, just a little bit. And this is a real frame. It all cleared up now. It's nice and crisp. And now, mind you, everything on the rest of the frames is fake as well, and it looks really good. Now this is a fake frame. We see a bit of a blurriness around the hand and the leg, basically moving parts. This is a fake frame here. You can clearly see that it's a bit blurry. But other than that, guys, this is a completely generated frame, independent. And there we go. We skipped ahead one more frame. That's a real frame. Fake frame. You can see the artifacting around the hand. And real frame. Pretty cool. Let's take a look at DLSS 3 frame generation now in the same exact scenario and check out the quality of those frames. So this here's our 4090 footage with DLSS 3 frame generation. We're going to basically take a look at the same thing, recorded at 120 FPS again. So this is a real frame here, and we're going to go ahead and skip one forward. Fake frame. I think DLSS does a little bit of a better job, but it's definitely prone to breaking up on the same exact things, basically. Now, if we look at the hand again, this is a real frame, and we move forward, and you can see it breaks up just a little. Real frame, fake frame, real frame. Again, here we have a real frame, a fake frame, a real frame, a fake frame. And keep in mind that this is actually pretty fast moving footage, right? Let me play it for you so you can see how fast it is, right? It does a pretty good job. Very impressive. Here's another angle at the tree, and we're back on FSR3 now with a 7900 XTX. And as you can see here, this is a real frame. We have nice and crisp outline. Our silhouette looks pretty good. Leaves look pretty good. Now we're going to go forward one frame. As you can see around the hand now, there's a bit of a almost like motion blur, artifacting a little bit. Not too bad though. And if you look at the branches and the leaves between them, you can see almost like remnants of the previous frames. And if we skip ahead one more frame, this is a real frame, and you can see now it cleared up. So did our silhouette. Here again we have a real frame. And if we go ahead and move one frame, you can see a little bit of artifacting around the hand. I mean, even other than that, it's pretty good, guys. I'm very impressed. I mean, the rest of the image looks really good. And this is how fast it's moving if we don't examine frame by frame. So let's take a look at DLSS. Now, this is DLSS 3 here, same area. As you can see, this is a real frame. Everything looks nice and crisp. Very good. If we skip forward one, you can see a bit of artifacting around the hand. And one thing I think DLSS 3 does a better job than FSR 3 is around those leaves. You know how you could see a bit remnants from the previous frame? On DLSS 3, it's like it's almost perfectly clear, right? But I think DLSS 3 has a bit more artifacting around the hand. Look at this, is a fake frame. And real frame. You can see the hand is nice and crisp now. Fake frame. You can see more artifacting now. And real frame. We have a fake frame. And real frame. Again, I know this is nitpicking, but that's kind of the point of this segment, right? I kind of wanted to dive in because I've been doing this in a few other games and I haven't made any videos about it, but I like to look at it. And in this game, actually, FSR 3 and DLSS 3 both work really, really good. It's actually a very good feature to have. Well, guys, that's all I had for you all today. I hope you enjoyed this sort of a deep dive at FSR 3 update for Fort Solis, a game that I did have a lot of fun playing, and I'm actually very impressed with the implementation of FSR 3 frame generation here. I mean, I know this type of game and gameplay lends itself well to the frame generation technology, but I think it's actually pretty good. Very comparable to DLSS 3 frame generation. As you saw, we compared both of them rather extensively. But I don't know, what do you think? Let me know down below and give the video a like if you liked it, and consider subscribing for more content. Thanks for watching the video, and I hope you all have a great rest of the day. I'll see you on the next one.
It would be rude not to.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, my boo. Happy birthday to